What happens when Matthew McConaughey walks onto the set of The View expecting a thoughtful conversation, only to challenge Whoopi Goldberg head-on, and the entire studio feels the air around them tighten like a drawn bowstring. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button to join Stage View, and don't forget to like this video and drop a comment telling us who you think was right in this explosive moment. Now, let's step inside the moment that left everyone breathless. The studio was already restless before he arrived. You could sense it in the way the crowd murmured, in the way the cameras repositioned, almost jittery, as though bracing for energy they couldn't predict. Matthew McConaughey entered with that trademark loose swagger, the half smile, the easy confidence. But behind it, there was something sharper. His eyes were lit with purpose, something he had come to say, something he wasn't planning to soften. Whoopi Goldberg looked up from her note cards the second she heard the footsteps. She knew the rhythm of the studio, the beat of a normal morning. This wasn't it. Something was off balance already. Matthew extended a hand. "Morning, Whoopi." She nodded, cautious. "Morning, Matthew. You ready?" He laughed, short, controlled. "Born ready." The audience clapped as he took his seat, but it wasn't the normal applause. There was an undercurrent, excitement, curiosity, maybe even tension. Like they sensed something was about to break open, even if they didn't know what. The segment began with the usual banter, the warm smiles, the polished ease of a daytime talk show. Sonny Hostin leaned forward first, asking him about his latest project, the book he'd been promoting. He answered smoothly, talking about purpose, direction, and the way people needed to reclaim their sense of identity. The crowd nodded along. Everything felt routine, until it didn't. It started with a pause. A long one. Matthew glanced down at his hands, then back up, with a look that said he'd been holding something back the entire time. And now he wasn't going to. "You know," he said softly, "something's been bothering me." Whoopi's eyes narrowed. "Oh," she murmured, but the smile she gave was measured. Matthew leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice calm but weighted. "I see a lot of people in this country talking over each other. Not listening. Assuming the worst. And I gotta say, some of that happens in rooms like this." The crowd reacted instantly, gasps, a sudden wave of whispers. The co-hosts shifted in their seats. Joy blinked, stunned. Sonny exchanged a look with Sarah. Whoopi didn't move, didn't blink. She simply stared at him. "Hold on," she said slowly. "Are you saying we're part of the problem?" "I'm saying," Matthew replied, "you're influential. And sometimes, it feels like the show leans more toward telling people what to think instead of letting them figure things out." It was like someone had cracked a glass pane. The soundless shock of it rippled across the set. Whoopi sat back. "Matthew," she said carefully, "we talk about issues. We talk about what's happening in the world. That's the job." "I get that," he said. "But there's talking about issues, and then there's pushing narratives." There it was. The trigger. The line that made every eyebrow rise. Whoopi laughed, but it wasn't a soft laugh. It was the kind that warned the table had just shifted. "Pushing narratives?" she repeated. "You want to explain that?" Matthew nodded, almost too calmly. "Sure. I think sometimes y'all get stuck in a bubble. And instead of inviting conversation, you shut it down. People are tired of being told what they're supposed to believe." A fire flickered behind Whoopi's eyes. "Matthew, you're sitting at a table with 5 different women who fight with each other every other day. Trust me, we're not shutting anything down." Sonny raised a hand, trying to mediate. Maybe he means the perception. But Matthew cut in, voice rising. Not angry, but forceful. "No, I mean the reality." A stunned hush fell. The producers, behind the cameras, exchanged frantic glances. One of them whispered, "Should we go to commercial?" But the director shook her head. "Not yet," she mouthed. "Let it breathe." Whoopi leaned forward now, both hands on the table, staring right at him. "Let me be very clear. This show has been around for almost 3 decades. We talk. We argue. We debate. But we do not silence people." Matthew responded instantly, sharp as a snapped twig. "Unless you disagree with them." The audience erupted, some gasping, some cheering, some shouting out, "Let him talk," while others yelled, "No way." Whoopi blinked, stunned at his directness. Then she steadied herself, lifting her chin slightly, the way she did when she was about to set a boundary. "Matthew," she said, "you came here to promote your book. Now you're accusing us of being close-minded." "I'm challenging you," he corrected. "Because you're important. Because millions watch you. And whether you know it or not, you have more power than you admit." For a moment, just one, Whoopi said nothing. Her jaw tightened. Then she exhaled softly. "You think we don't know that?" she replied. "You think we don't feel the weight of every word we say? You think we don't get hate from every side, all day, every day, because we dare to speak on things most people avoid?" Matthew met her gaze. "Then lead with humility, not certainty." The audience reacted again, a rolling wave of murmurs. Joy looked between them like she was witnessing a heavyweight match. Sarah's hands were clasped tightly in her lap. Sunny's eyes darted from one face to another, trying to sense whether she should intervene or let the moment unfold. Whoopi tilted her head. "What makes you think we lack humility?" Matthew answered with a slight shake of the head. "Because humility listens. And sometimes all I hear is talking." That line hit like a dropped stone. Heavy. Unavoidable. Whoopi leaned back slowly, the tension in her shoulders visible. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion crossing her face. Annoyance, disbelief, frustration, and maybe even hurt. "You want to know something, Matthew?" she said quietly. "I've been doing this job a long time. I've seen everything. Presidents, actors, activists, people who've changed the world, and people who've tried to burn it down. But I've never had someone come on this show and tell me I don't listen." Matthew didn't back down. Maybe no one wanted to. Joy finally interjected, half laughing, half pleading. Okay, can we just take a breath?" Everyone take a breath. But Whoopi wasn't stepping back. "Not yet. You know," she said, voice tightening, "you talk about humility. But you came in here with an accusation. Not a question. Not a conversation. You came in ready for a fight. And maybe," Matthew replied, "that's what it takes to be heard." For a moment, the studio felt frozen in place. The air was still. The audience held their breath. Even the cameras seemed to lean in closer, drawn to the collision unfolding between two Hollywood icons who had come from completely different worlds, but found themselves locked in the same charged space. Sunny tried again. "Is there a misunderstanding here?" "There's no misunderstanding," Whoopi cut in, eyes still fixed on Matthew. "He came in here to make a point. So go ahead. Make it." Matthew drew a slow breath, steadying himself. "My point is simple. People are tired. Tired of division. Tired of labels. Tired of being told what category they fit into. And when I watch this show, sometimes it feels like you're fueling that instead of healing it." Whoopi's brows rose. "Healing the world is not the job of a talk show." "No," Matthew said quietly. "But you can influence it." Another silence. Longer this time. Heavier. Whoopi looked down at the table for a moment, her thumb tapping against the wood. Then she lifted her gaze again, and her voice softened, not in weakness, but in honesty. "You think we don't know that," she said. "We're human. We mess up. But we're trying. Every day. Even when we disagree with each other. Even when we get it wrong." Her voice wavered just slightly. That was the first time the audience felt something shift, not anger, but vulnerability. Matthew saw it. His expression softened too, just a bit. "I know," he said. "And that's why I said something. Because you matter." It was a rare moment of mutual recognition. Brief, fragile, suspended in tension. Then, from the corner of the set, the director finally gave the signal. The red light flashed, 30 seconds to commercial. But the conversation wasn't done. Not even close. Whoopi leaned forward one last time before the break, her voice low but powerful. "If you want a real conversation, Matthew, then let's have one. Off script. No talking points. No performances. You and me. Right here." Matthew nodded slowly. "All right. Let's talk." The director counted down from 10. The audience was buzzing, shifting, whispering intensely, phones already out as though they wanted to capture every second of what was unfolding. 5 seconds left. 4. 3. Matthew and Whoopi locked eyes. 2. 1. The screen faded to black. But the moment was only just beginning. When the cameras cut to commercial, the applause sign flickered uncertainly, as if even the studio machinery didn't know what to do. The audience didn't applaud. They just sat there, leaning forward, stunned, murmuring like they had witnessed the opening blow of a heavyweight clash they never expected to see. Matthew stayed exactly where he was, elbows on his knees, staring at the table. Whoopi didn't move either. Her hands were clasped in front of her now, fingers laced tight, knuckles whitening. Sunny exhaled loudly, running a hand through her hair. "Well," she muttered, "that escalated fast." Joy, flustered, leaned back as if trying to escape the invisible pressure circling the table. I thought he was just going to talk about his book, she whispered. Why is he picking a fight with us? No one answered. Matthew finally lifted his head. I'm not picking a fight, he said quietly. I'm being honest. Whoopi's eyes snapped to him instantly. You call that honesty? She asked, her voice steady but sharp. Coming onto a show that invited you, giving you an audience, giving you their time, and using it to take a swing at us? He frowned. It's not a swing. It's a challenge. There's a difference. Oh, please, Joy muttered under her breath, but Whoopi didn't glance her way. During the break, the floor crew moved around carefully, as if afraid any sudden movement might set off another explosion. A makeup artist approached Whoopi tentatively, but she raised a hand without looking away from Matthew. I'm good, she said simply. The makeup artist nodded and retreated. Matthew leaned back, running his hands through his hair. I didn't mean for it to come out harsh. But you gotta understand, I've been watching the way the world's been talking. People don't listen to each other anymore. They just defend their side. Whoopi's voice softened, but only slightly. You think you're the only one noticing that? We live that. Every day. Do you know how many messages I get from people telling me I'm ruining the world? From people telling me I'm not hard enough? From people telling me I should be fired for having an opinion? Matthew's eyes flickered. That's not what I'm saying. But it feels like it, she interrupted. You came in here saying we talk too much and listen too little. But did you stop for 1 second to consider that we do listen? To our audience. To our critics. To each other. It's messy. It's loud. It's ugly sometimes. But it's real. The stage manager pointed toward the countdown clock, 20 seconds until they were live again. Sunny leaned in, whispering urgently, Look, both of you. This can either become a meltdown or a meaningful conversation. Decide which one you want. Matthew looked at Sunny first, then back at Whoopi. His voice lowered. I want a real conversation. Whoopi held his gaze. So do I. 10 seconds. The audience sensed that something had changed, maybe deepened. Their whispers quieted. Their bodies leaned forward again, instinctively preparing for the next shockwave. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on, and the studio erupted back into existence. Joy was the first to speak, trying to reset the mood. Welcome back to The View, she said with a strained smile. If you're just joining us, well, you picked a heck of a moment. A ripple of nervous laughter moved through the audience. Whoopi didn't wait. Matthew, she said directly, her voice calm but intensely controlled. Before the break, you said this show pushes narratives. You said we don't listen. So let's talk about that. Right now. On air. Matthew nodded once. All right, let's do it. The crowd murmured again, quiet, electrified. Matthew leaned forward. Look, I didn't come here to attack you. I respect you. I respect all of you. You've built something big. Something powerful. But when I watch the show, especially the tough segments, I see moments where it feels like the table's already made up its mind before the conversation even begins. Whoopi's eyes narrowed slightly. Like what? Matthew hesitated, but only for a moment. Like the way certain guests get treated depending on whether y'all agree with them. Some get space. Others get steamrolled. Oof, a few audience members whispered. Joy raised her eyebrows, turning her head as if she'd been splashed with cold water. Sarah chimed in cautiously. I mean, to be fair, sometimes we're passionate. Matthew looked at her. Passion's great. But when passion turns into shutting someone down, people notice. They feel it. And then they start thinking that shows like this are part of the noise instead of the conversation. Whoopi took a slow breath. Matthew, we challenge ideas. That's our whole job. Yes, Matthew said. But people can't hear the challenge if the heat's too high. His voice carried a mix of frustration and imploring sincerity. He wasn't attacking. He was pleading to be understood. Whoopi matched his energy. And you're talking about humility, she said. But you walked in here assuming you understood our intentions, or our experiences. Matthew hesitated. Maybe I did assume some things. But I'm also responding to what I've seen. And that's fair, Whoopi said. But here's the truth. Viewers only see a slice. They see the final product. They don't see the hours of conversations behind the scenes. The disagreements we have before the cameras roll. The work we do to try to represent different perspectives. The audience nodded, listening intently. Matthew lifted a hand. I'm not saying you don't work. I'm saying sometimes, just sometimes, it feels like you're not willing to entertain that someone with a different viewpoint could be right. Are you willing to? Whoopi asked. The question hit hard. It wasn't accusatory. It was honest. Direct. The kind that forced a person to look inward. Matthew paused. For real. For longer than the audience expected. I try, he said finally. But maybe not as much as I should. That admission surprised everyone, Whoopi included. Her expression softened for a moment. Joy leaned back, whispering to Sunny, Well, didn't expect that. Sunny hid a smile behind her hand. Matthew continued, voice calmer now. Look, Whoopi. I know I came in strong. Maybe too strong. But I've been thinking a lot about how divided everything feels. And I guess I wanted to say something about it. Even if it came out messy. Whoopi relaxed a little, but her eyes were still cautious, searching him for sincerity. And I hear you, she said quietly. I do. But you gotta understand, this table isn't a monolith. People think we're all the same, but we disagree all the time. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're wrong. We're human. Matthew nodded. I know. But here's what gets me, Whoopi continued. You said earlier that people are tired of being told what to think. So let me tell you something. We're tired too. Tired of being told we're the villains. Tired of being told our opinions are dangerous just because they're loud. The room went still. Matthew's expression shifted, not defensive, but contemplative. Whoopi's voice lowered, steady and resonant. You walked in here thinking we're not humble. But humility is getting up every day, sitting at this table, and knowing millions of people are going to criticize you no matter what you say. And still saying something anyway. Matthew didn't respond immediately. He let the words settle, absorbing them. Then he leaned forward again, eyes steady. I didn't come here to call you villains. I came here because I think you're powerful. And I believe powerful people need to be challenged. Including me. The energy shifted yet again. A slow, rumbling applause broke out among the audience, hesitant at first, then growing stronger. It wasn't about taking sides. It was about witnessing something rare. Two strong personalities actually hearing each other. But it wasn't over. Sunny tapped her pen against the table. Okay, she said, we've talked about listening. We've talked about humility. But Matthew, if you could tell us one thing you think we need to change, what would it be? Matthew didn't flinch. Less certainty. The audience murmured widely. People want truth, Matthew said. Not conclusions handed to them. Let the conversations breathe. Let people disagree without framing them as wrong right from the start. Whoopi considered that. For the first time, she didn't interrupt. She didn't challenge. She simply thought. And you, she asked finally. What do you need to change? Matthew swallowed. Maybe. I need to stop assuming the worst. Maybe I need to stop treating disagreement like it's an attack. The crowd reacted again, warm this time. Sympathetic. Whoopi nodded slowly. That's fair. A pause. Then Matthew chuckled softly. You know, my mom always told me, Matthew, you gotta learn to shut up sometimes. The audience erupted in laughter. Even Whoopi cracked a smile. Your mom is a smart woman, she said. Matthew grinned. Oh, she is. She'd also say, don't start a fight you're not ready to finish. Whoopi shot back instantly. Well, then you came to the right place, baby. The laughter swelled. The tension in the room broke like a cloud finally releasing rain. But beneath the humor, there was still an undercurrent, unfinished business, unresolved tension, something building beneath the newfound civility. The director signaled another commercial break. Matthew leaned back. Whoopi exhaled. The audience was buzzing so loud the microphones picked up faint echoes. Sunny whispered, Well, this is definitely going viral. Joy replied, Viral? Honey, this is going to melt the internet. The stage lights dimmed slightly as the cut-to-commercial countdown began. 5 seconds. 4. 3. Matthew and Whoopi exchanged a look. Not hostile, not warm, but charged. 2. 1. The screen faded to black again. And the real storm? It was still gathering. The fade to black lasted only a few seconds, but in that small darkness, the energy on the set shifted again. Less explosive now, more like the low rumble before a second storm. The audience murmured among themselves, the crew whispered urgently in headsets, and at the table, Matthew and Whoopi sat in a strange truce, breathing in the leftover tension. The director walked over quickly, crouching beside the table as if she'd stepped into sacred territory. Okay, you two, she whispered. This is real television happening right now. But just try to keep it from breaking into an actual brawl, okay? Whoopi gave a tired, amused smirk. If he doesn't swing on me, I won't swing on him. Matthew raised both hands. No swinging. Just talking. Good, the director said, standing and signaling to the stage manager, because America's heart rate is already through the roof. Sunny laughed under her breath. Mine too. Joy fanned herself dramatically. I'm sweating through this blouse. Sarah nudged her. You do that every episode. Not like this, Joy replied. This is cinematic. The stage manager counted down to the return. The murmur of the audience died down, giving way to an anticipatory hush, the kind you get right before a verdict is announced. A couple of women in the front row clutched each other's arms. One man had his phone out, recording even during commercial, whispering, This is insane. This is absolutely insane. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked again, and the show returned to millions of viewers, unaware they were stepping into the middle of emotional shrapnel. Sunny spoke first. It was always sunny when the room needed gravity. We're back on The View, and we're having one of the most honest conversations we've had in a long time. The camera cut to Matthew, then to Whoopi, their faces framed like dueling portraits. Sunny continued. During the break, we all took a breath. But the conversation isn't over. And I think a lot of people at home want to understand where this tension is coming from. Matthew, earlier, you said you feel shows like ours sometimes add to the division instead of easing it. Matthew nodded slowly, choosing his words more carefully now. Yeah, I think sometimes the way issues get talked about here feels like it divides people instead of pulling them together. People watch this for guidance, whether you know it or not. He turned toward Whoopi. But I also heard what you said. About the weight. About being labeled villains. About the pressure you're under. I didn't consider that deeply enough before I opened my mouth. Whoopi's expression softened, but not completely. Well, thank you. But let me ask you something, Matthew. Why today? Why come here with this? Why us? Matthew hesitated, then spoke with surprising vulnerability. Because lately I've been thinking a lot about what kind of conversations we're all having. And there was something I saw on this show a few weeks ago that stuck with me. Whoopi tilted her head. What was that? Matthew sighed. There was a guest you had, someone who disagreed with most of you on a big topic. He barely got 2 sentences out before he was getting hit from all sides. And I watched him shut down. Completely. He wasn't even trying to argue anymore. He just wanted to get out of the chair. Whoopi blinked, remembering. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Matthew said quietly. And when I saw him fold up like that, it bothered me. Because that guy represented millions of people who feel like they can't speak. And maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was totally off. But he should have been given space to talk. And look, I'm not blaming you alone. I'm talking about the whole culture of debate shows now. But I saw that moment right here. And it haunted me. The audience murmured, a soft ache rolling through the crowd. Whoopi exhaled, leaning back. Matthew, you should know something. Her voice trembled just slightly. After that interview, I went backstage and cried. Matthew blinked, startled. Joy turned sharply, staring at her. Sunny reached across the table as if to touch her hand, but waited. Whoopi continued. Not because of him, but because I felt like I failed. Like we didn't hold that conversation right. Like everything got too hot, too fast. She paused, swallowing. But it's hard, Matthew. It's hard to know where the line is between challenging someone and steamrolling them. The audience reacted softly, sympathy, surprise. Matthew's brows knit. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't, Whoopi said gently. People don't see us cry backstage. They see the fight, not the aftermath. Silence swept the room. Sarah finally spoke, her voice soft. This table, it gets heavy sometimes. We disagree with guests. We disagree with each other. And sometimes we get it wrong. We all know that. Sunny nodded. And the world is so tense now. Every conversation feels like a battlefield. Joy chimed in. Every opinion is a landmine. Matthew listened, absorbing everything. He rubbed his hands together slowly, almost nervously. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't challenge people. That's important. But when the tone gets too strong, the message gets lost. Whoopi studied his face. Really studied it. Not like a co-host. Like someone trying to understand another human being's intentions. You know what I think's happening here? She said after a moment. What's that? Matthew replied. You're scared. Matthew froze, blinked. Scared? Yeah, Whoopi said gently. Scared of where the country is heading. Scared of the noise. Scared of losing the ability to talk to each other. The words hit him harder than he expected. His shoulders sagged slightly. For the first time, he looked exhausted. Yeah, he murmured. You're not wrong. The audience didn't utter a sound. Whoopi continued. And we're scared too. We're scared every time we open our mouths that we're going to get it wrong. Scared of failing the audience. Scared of being misunderstood. Matthew looked at her, eyes softening. Maybe we're all scared. Maybe we are, she replied. A long silence passed. One of those rare, fragile silences that felt like a shared confession. Then Sunny broke it with a quiet smile. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. But the moment wasn't done. Sarah leaned in. Matthew, I'm curious. What do you want people to take away from this moment? From you coming here and challenging us on air? Matthew breathed deeply, thinking. I want people to understand that disagreement isn't disrespect. That we can call each other out and still sit at the same table. That the conversation doesn't have to end with a fight. Whoopi nodded. And I want people to understand that we're trying. Maybe we don't always get it right, but we're trying. Joy placed a hand dramatically over her heart. This is the most emotional episode we've had in months. Sunny added softly. This is what it looks like when people with strong opinions sit together and actually listen. But right when it seemed like the tension had dissolved into clarity, something unexpected happened. A voice from the studio audience suddenly called out, loud enough to echo. Whoopi, don't let him off the hook. The audience gasped. Heads whipped toward the source. The woman who'd shouted looked nervous but determined. Matthew turned too, stunned. Whoopi raised a hand. Ma'am, we're having a conversation. But the woman persisted shakily. He came in here ready to attack you. He should apologize. Matthew blinked, shocked. Wait, I didn't. Another voice chimed in on the opposite side of the audience. No, he made valid points. The crowd started reacting again, voices rising, murmurs turning into waves of noise. The studio felt like it might spiral out of control. Whoopi stood up. Just stood. The room fell silent instantly. I don't need him to apologize, she said firmly. I need him to be honest. And he has been. Matthew rose too, slowly, cautiously. Look, if I came off disrespectful, I'm sorry. That wasn't my intention. The crowd murmured warmly, accepting, approving. Whoopi nodded. Thank you, he added softly. But I'm not sorry for bringing it up. Whoopi smiled. And I'm not sorry for pushing back. The audience laughed, applauded, breathed again. The producers relaxed. Joy unclenched. Sunny exhaled. Sarah dabbed her eyes dramatically. Then Whoopi gestured for everyone to sit again. Matthew, she said, voice warm but pointed. You know what this moment reminds me of? What? He asked. When people stop trying to win and start trying to understand. Matthew smiled, genuine this time. Yeah, feels like that. But even in that warmth, there was a new tension forming in the air. A different kind. One that didn't come from conflict, but from the weight of what was still unsaid. Joy glanced at the clock. We still have one more segment. And in that final segment, everything would break open. Because no matter how much progress they'd made, the biggest confrontation was still ahead. When you're ready for the explosive finale, just say. The table felt strangely calm as they prepared for the final segment. Too calm, like the eerie stillness before a final crack of thunder. The audience sat rigid, waiting. The co-hosts settled in their seats, exchanging nervous little glances. Even the crew sensed it. The air had shifted, but not in a way that signaled closure. Something unfinished pulsed under the surface. Matthew and Whoopi sat across from each other, not adversaries anymore, but not quite allies either. They had reached an understanding. But the room itself, the viewers, the tension of the world outside, none of that was finished. Not yet. The stage manager gave the countdown again. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. Joy tried to start light. Welcome back, y'all. If you've been watching today, then, bless your heart, because this has been a ride. Laughter rippled through the audience, but it carried a jittery edge. Sunny clasped her hands. We've had one of the most honest, raw conversations on this show in a long time. And in this last segment, we want to talk about what comes next. The camera cut to Matthew, then to Whoopi. The tension returned, not hostile, but heavy with expectation. Sunny continued. Matthew, earlier you said you want people to understand that disagreement isn't disrespect. But we also live in a world where people are shouting at each other more than listening. What do you think it's going to take to fix that? Matthew didn't answer right away. He looked at the audience, really looked. I think we got to stop assuming everyone who disagrees with us is our enemy, he said. We gotta stop going into conversations ready to win instead of ready to learn. The audience murmured. Matthew turned slightly, facing Whoopi. And we need people with platforms like yours, to help set that example. Whoopi arched a brow. And what example do you want us to set? Matthew inhaled deeply, letting the conversation breathe, letting people finish their thoughts, showing that you can challenge ideas without attacking the person. The audience nodded. You could feel how ready they were for this to wrap in a neat bow, to transform into that heartwarming daytime show lesson they'd be proud to talk about over lunch. But Whoopi didn't let it land easily. She leaned forward. Okay, but let me ask you something deeper. Something real. Her voice dropped, intensified. Are you willing to hold yourself to the same standard you're asking of us? Matthew blinked. Yes. I think so. Think so. Whoopi pressed. Matthew frowned, caught off guard. Yes. Yes, I'm willing. Whoopi's gaze sharpened again. Because it's easy to walk onto a show and point out what you think we're doing wrong. But it's a lot harder to turn that mirror back on yourself. You said earlier you came in here maybe too hot. You admitted you assumed things about us. But here's the real question. Are you willing to grow from this? Or are you just making a moment? Because people love moments. The audience murmured, surprised by her push, impressed by her courage. Sunny's eyes widened slightly. Joy raised a brow. Sarah's jaw dropped a little. Matthew didn't avoid it. He didn't dodge. He didn't smile it off. He leaned back, rubbed the back of his neck, and said quietly, "You're right to ask that." The entire room held its breath. Matthew continued, "I've spent a lot of time talking about unity, about listening, about meeting people in the middle. But I haven't always walked that talk. I get impatient. I get frustrated. Sometimes I judge without understanding." He let out a slow exhale. "And maybe I walked in here today trying to make a point instead of starting a conversation." The audience hummed with emotion. Whoopi softened. "That's honesty." Matthew nodded. "Yeah, and if I'm going to challenge anyone to do better, then I gotta do better too." Joy put a hand over her heart again, less dramatic this time, more genuinely moved. Sarah whispered, "Wow." But Whoopi wasn't finished. "Can I tell you what this moment feels like?" she asked gently. Matthew nodded. "Please." "It feels like what happens when two people from totally different worlds finally drop their armor," she said. "We're not yelling. We're not trying to win. We're actually hearing each other." Matthew smiled slowly. "Feels good, doesn't it?" "It does," Whoopi said softly. The audience applauded, warmly, sincerely. But that applause wasn't the climax. The climax came when a producer suddenly hurried toward the table, whispering urgently behind the camera, then holding up a phone with a look of shock on her face. Sarah leaned forward. "What happened?" The producer mouthed something quickly to Sunny. Sunny's eyes widened. "Wait already?" The producer nodded. Joy leaned in. "Okay, someone fill us in." Sunny cleared her throat and addressed the table. "We're getting word that clips of this exact conversation, are already blowing up on social media." The audience gasped. Matthew blinked. "Already?" Whoopi laughed. "Welcome to 2025, baby. Everything is instant." Another producer whispered something and pointed at the monitor behind the audience. The screen lit up. Tweets. Headlines. Hot takes. Some praising Matthew for challenging the show. Some praising Whoopi for standing her ground. Some celebrating the vulnerability from both sides. Some calling it a breakthrough moment. Others calling it a train wreck. The audience stared, stunned. Sarah whispered, "It's everywhere." Joy shook her head. "Oh Lord, we're gonna trend, aren't we?" Sunny looked back at the camera. "This is exactly what we were talking about. Everything becomes a spectacle." Matthew stared at the flood of reactions, expression unreadable. Whoopi studied him. "How do you feel seeing all that?" He answered honestly. "Overwhelmed." "Yeah," Whoopi said. "Try being on this table every day." The crowd laughed again, but it was a knowing, empathetic laugh. Matthew turned to her, quieter now. "Does it bother you? The constant scrutiny?" Whoopi shrugged. "Sometimes. But I learned something a long time ago. If people are going to talk about you, you might as well give them something worth talking about." Matthew grinned. "Well, we did that today." Whoopi extended her hand across the table. Matthew looked at it for a moment, then placed his hand in hers. The audience erupted in applause. Some people stood. Others wiped tears. Phones recorded every second, knowing this moment would be replayed, remixed, debated, and dissected across the entire internet. But even as their hands met, there was a subtle tension, an understanding that the world outside the studio would twist, choose sides, argue endlessly about who was right and who was wrong. And that was the point. This moment wasn't clean. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't scripted. It was human. As the applause faded, Whoopi leaned in, voice low but powerful. Matthew, we don't have to agree on everything. But I appreciate that you came here, that you spoke, that you listened. Matthew nodded. And I appreciate that you pushed back. You made me think harder than I expected to. Whoopi smiled. Good. That's what we're supposed to do. Sunny looked toward the camera. I think today something rare happened. Two people with different perspectives sat at the same table, challenged each other, and walked away with understanding. Joy added, and no one flipped the table over. That's progress. The audience roared with laughter. The stage manager signaled. 1 minute left. Whoopi took a breath and addressed the viewers directly. Look, this world is loud, and messy, and complicated. But don't let that stop you from talking. Don't let it stop you from listening. And don't let it stop you from finding common ground with people you think you disagree with. Matthew jumped in. Conversation isn't easy, but it's worth it. Sunny nodded. Always. The final countdown began. 10 seconds. Whoopi looked at Matthew one last time. You walked in with fire, but you walked out with honesty. I respect that. Matthew smiled. Thank you. And I respect you. 5 seconds. 4. 3. Sunny whispered, what a day. 2. 1. The screen faded to black. And the fallout began immediately. Because as the outro music played across TV sets nationwide, social media exploded into a frenzy. Clips, memes, essays, reaction videos, hashtags, debates, praise, criticism. It was everywhere. Was Matthew right? Was Whoopi right? Did The View finally have a real conversation? Who won? Who lost? Did anyone actually lose? People argued in the comments, dueling strangers sharing feelings they didn't know they had. Other talk shows picked it up within minutes. Blogs published early reactions. News networks aired clips. Everyone weighed in. Everyone except Matthew and Whoopi, who walked off the stage quietly, both lost in their own thoughts, both sensing something had happened that neither of them fully understood yet. A moment that wasn't just viral. A moment that would linger. A moment that people would remember. A moment that would follow both of them long after the cameras stopped rolling. And now, dear viewer, it's your turn. Tell me in the comments. Whose side are you on? Was Matthew challenging something real, or was Whoopi right to push back? Or did both of them have something important to say? And if you love dramatic, explosive stories like this, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, hit that like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next cinematic deep dive. Because this was just one moment, and there are so many more stories waiting to be told.